Someone who influenced my writing style and taught me a lot was my mentor, Vivian Shipley. It was at a time when I first began to look at my poetry critically and realizing that you had to read it out loud rather than keep it to yourself. And in reading poetry out loud, you find where the mistakes might be when you trip over a line or two. And I heard Vivian read, and I was incredibly impressed that she was such a great writer and reader. So I went to Southern Connecticut, took one of her creative writing courses, which later led to me finishing my master's degree in creative writing at Southern, taking Vivian's courses and other literature courses. And one of the things that Vivian imprinted on me was the need for a narrative, to talk about things that were real in my life, but also to preserve heritage, growing up, and stories that were going to be lost to my grandchildren and to just lost in general. That instead of this abstract kind of poetry, something that moved me and meant something to me. So this is a poem that grew out of that. It was me trying to express all of the types of things that I had learned in her class about, demonstrating things, showing things, and not telling, just telling a story, but giving images to stuff, and also to talk about my father, which was very difficult for me at the time. So this is Litany of Streets. This poem won the Sunken Garden Poetry Prize, and it really started me off rolling on poetry. So Litany of Streets. Catching some lights, we rolled down Howard Avenue past Rosette. My father tells me this was once a nice part of town. He does not drive, has never driven a car. His geography limited to the bus routes, how far he could walk. He has been a prolific walker. As we turn onto Columbus Avenue, he says, "See the dome on that church? It used to be all gold. I've heard it all before. Gold leaf. It was beautiful. St. Anthony's, San Antonio, pray for us." I correct him, pointing out the church is Sacred Heart. St. Anthony's is the building less than a block over. Sacred Heart, he asks. Once all these streets used to run down to the railroad, trolleys one way, and a block over you can catch another going the other way. I would say something, but he starts again. Pop worked on the railroad. His brother John and uncle, they were all railroad men. On South Frontage Road, he says that what he misses most is the flea market. You can go around on a Saturday, and there would always be something valuable to find, always something good. Everything was old there, but there was something new for you. He stops. That's the Prince Street School. I went to school there. I've heard this before as well, heard it all before. The building is refurbished. Its red brick bright in the sunlight. It is now a medical building. To the right, the old Lee High School sits upon the top of half of what was once Liberty Street. It is where the house he grew up in stood, before the highway came through, before redevelopment. I ask anyway, isn't that where you were born? No. His answer is a surprise, something new on a Saturday. I asked my mother one day, "Ma, which hospital was I born in?" And she asked and said, "You weren't born in a hospital. You were born on Lafayette Street." After 50 years and all the talk of neighborhoods and houses, of stores and movie theaters, I had thought he had only lived in that one house he always talked about. I've written down a family history. Here is something once lost, forgotten. We are both quiet. The litany of streets has stopped. We turn onto church, wordless past chapel, to Elm, to Olive, to Lucibello's Bakery. He is retired. Still all the employees love him. My father, last of the old-timer bakeries left. Frank died. "Hey, Tony, take some Zaples." Johnny fills the white cardboard box, tying it with red string. "Come in again. Don't be a stranger. We miss you. Nobody knows anything anymore. How to make the cream, how to paint the cookies. He beams. Back in the car, I turn down Grand Avenue, determined to go home by another route. You know, my father says, I had an aunt who had a house here on James Street, and I listened carefully against the day when memories fail.